Hey guys, what's up and welcome back. My name is Avery and today I'm going to be going over 5 things that you can do to improve your gameplay in PUBG and set yourself above the average gamer. All right, so you clicked on this video because you've been playing PUBG for a bit of time now. You're starting to get a little bit better, but you just can't seem to get those chicken dinners. You just can't seem to connect your shots and get the kills that you want and that you need to win. And you want to find ways to set yourself above the average gamer. Okay, so step number 1 is to bind your keys correctly. Now, I know this part is super boring and doesn't really involve actually playing the game, but it can make a world of difference when you have your keys bound correctly, as opposed to having them bound in places where you're caught in a situation and you have to look down at your keyboard to swap weapons or something like that. So it can really save you in those situations where you die just unnecessarily from something as silly as not having your keys bound correctly. I won't spend a ton of time giving you lectures on how to bind your keys. We can do that in another video, but just quickly, I want to tell you what I use for my key binds. I use the Logitech G502 wireless mouse with all of the weights in it. For me personally, I like a heavier mouse. Now, getting into the key binds of my mouse, just briefly, I have my aim right here, my fire right here. One thing that I recently learned is not to have your aim/ADS on this button. What it does is it slows down your ADS speed. So you want to have your hip fire bound to a different button, and you can choose whatever button you want for that. Some people use caps lock, some people use shift, but the most important thing is to not bind your ADS button and your aim button to the same button, because it slows down your ADS speed, and that split second can really change the outcome of your game. Second thing I have done with my mouse is I have my weapon slot 1 bound to mouse 3 and my crouch button bound to mouse 4. It's really hard for someone to hit a headshot on you when you're crouching, leaning, and peeking all at the same time. And for obvious reasons, I have my swap to weapon 1 bound on my mouse. That way, if I'm running with my sniper or even just running without my gun, it's a quick little click here and I have my weapon out and I'm ready to fight.
You are insane.
Okay, let's get this guy up here. All right, so here is my keyboard. I have the HyperX RGB keyboard. Originally, the keybind for V is to swap from third person to first person and vice versa. I actually swapped that to H because I never really use it, and I never really use the button H either. So I swapped that to button H, and then instead of having vault and jump on the same button, you want to keep jump as spacebar and then change your vault to V. That way, if for some reason you're needing to jump up over a window and spray someone down, you have the opportunity to do that without accidentally vaulting in the window and jumping right into the face of your enemy. That's really the only major difference I have with my keyboard. Okay, so abruptly we move to step number 2. This may feel like I'm pointing out obvious things, but if you're aware of them and you're conscious about them, then they're gonna make a world of difference. So, as obvious as it is, step number 2 is your crosshair placement. Let's just say you're looting a building, right? And let's just say there's a person sitting in the corner, not moving at all. You have no idea that they're there, and let's just say they start shooting at you and you're facing the other way, which we know people never sit in corners in PUBG. But let's just say for experimental purposes that happens. Well, if your crosshair is in the correct place, it's going to be really easy to turn around and down the person before they even put you down at 1 HP. On the contrary, if your crosshair is aiming at their feet while they start shooting at you, you're probably going to lose the battle. So, as simple as it may seem, be really conscious about where your crosshair is placed at all times, and you should have no problem downing people sitting in those corners with shotguns and pistols. The best place to have your crosshair is right in the middle of your screen. Step number 3, or tip/trick number 3, is a little bit more complex and requires a little bit higher of a skill level to execute correctly. So you have your keys bound correctly. you know where to place your crosshair, and you just dropped in. It's a hot drop. You have the loot that you need. Maybe you don't have a vest or helmet, but you definitely have a weapon. What do you do next? The most important thing you could possibly do on a hot drop is to scan and check your corners. And I'm going to teach you the most effective way to scan and check your corners right now. Okay, so let's say you have a person in the room to your right. You know for a fact that they're in the room. There's two different things that you can do to execute this push perfectly. The first thing you can do is use audio cues. So let's say you know that they're in the room, but you don't know exactly where they are. What do? Do you run and jump in the room and just guess which corner they're in? Do you stand outside and wait? The answer is neither of these. You don't want to stand outside and wait, because if they peek you first, then they will have what's called peeker's advantage. Peeker's advantage is when someone peeks around a corner, they have a split second where you can't see them on your screen, but they can definitely see you on their screen, hence the name peeker's advantage. So you definitely want to be the person peeking so that you have that split second of difference between the time that they see you and the time that you see them. So it's really important to not give up peeker's advantage. So you have this scenario. Someone's in the room to your right. You know that they're in there, but you don't know what corner they're in. What can you do? The thing that I always do is try and use throwables if I have them. I'll pop a smoke in there, a grenade, a flashbang, something to get them shuffling around or get them moving so that I know exactly which corner they're in. As soon as I know what corner they're in, I'm going to utilize the crap out of peeker's advantage. Remember that while you're doing this, crosshair placement is extremely important. If you run and jump in a room aimed at the floor and someone's crouched in a corner, you're probably not going to win the fight. So make sure you keep your crosshair in the middle of your screen no matter what. So tip number 3 is effectively scanning and pushing in a room. And the way that you do that when someone's camping a room is you want to pop a throwable into their room, get them shuffling around, and then once you know exactly where they are, then use peeker's advantage, pre-fire them, and get them out of the game. Because let's be honest, no one likes campers anyway. Okay, so tip number 3 was effectively scanning and pushing into a room. Now, tip number 4, what I'm going to teach you is for when someone's pushing into your building, what you can do to outsmart your enemy. So this happens all the time, right? You're looting a building or you just cleared the hot drop and you hear footsteps outside and the first thing you think is, oh crap. Do not panic. Here's what you're gonna do next time this happens to you. The first thing you're gonna do is make sure that your windows are clear. Obviously, you don't wanna get shot in the back, so check your windows, check your doors, and if you can, get high ground. So go up the stairs or go up the ramp, wherever you are, you wanna get high ground on this person. High ground is better for so many reasons, but just to name a few of them, if you're staring upwards, then you're probably looking into the sun, which makes things harder to see, especially on Vikendi. Second, your gun's range has more range of motion aiming downwards than it does upwards. So all in all, it's better just to have the high ground. Now, you know that someone's pushing in your building. What you have to do in order to take peeker's advantage away from them, because we talked about how whenever you're the one pushing, you have the peeker's advantage. Well, now the roles are reversed. Someone else is pushing you and you want to take away their peeker's advantage. So what you're going to do in order to execute this is move around, right? You're not going to want to stay in the same spot. You want to vault out of the top window. If you're in the top window, circle back around behind them, get behind them and take away that peeker's advantage. Or the second way that you can outsmart your enemy is by being in a position that they don't expect. Sometimes this position is literally prone in the middle of the room. They're going into the room expecting you to be sitting in the corner, expecting you to be crouched, expecting you to be standing. So you want to be in a place that they don't expect. Tip number 5 is a really, really complex tip, and I don't even know that I can explain it to you in this short little amount of time, but let me just simplify it for you. And if you guys have questions, you can leave them in the comments below. Tip number 5 is to utilize all of your inventory and your terrain to your advantage. By this, I mean know what ammo you have, know what guns you have, know what scopes you have, know your throwables, and know your terrain. Small examples of this is knowing that your building only has one staircase, or knowing that your building has two staircases. If your teammate gets knocked on the second floor, you can use a Molotov, toss it down the stairs. That way the other team can't push you while you're rezzing. Small things like that make a world of a difference when you're playing this game. It's really all about outsmarting your enemy when you both have the skill to down each other with aim. You have to use the tools that you have. You have to use your terrain, your map knowledge, and your building knowledge in order to outsmart your enemy. So take the time and go study your maps. Know what terrain is safe. Know what angles are the best. Know when to pop smokes, where to throw Molotovs, where to pop grenades. All of those skills you need to know, and in order to execute them correctly in each position on the map, you need to study the maps and know the angles and corners of each building on each map. So now that you guys have a little bit of homework to go study your maps and use these tips and tricks to help you out when fighting your enemies, let me know in the comments below if these tips and tricks helped you, or if you have tips and tricks that you want to share. Please feel free to do so in the comment section below. Thank you guys again. My name is Avery, and I'll see you next week for another tutorial video.
Is that right at the tree?
Close.
Easy squad, right?
Shut up, Thistle.